Hi watcher, last video from this garage. We're moving to the new place very shortly. It's pretty much ready and in place. Just got to get last few things in place and then we're up there. So for today, just for the last one, we're going to change the shocks on the Harley Sportster for something you might remember, something a little bit familiar. Welcome back to Delboy's Garage. I'll just show you the stuff first. Now, any of those of you who bought a Sportster, naturally one of the first things, especially if you have a European model Sportster, you get 13.5-inch shocks on the back as standard. In the USA, they get, I think, 11.5 or 12, so they get a lower shock as standard. But the ones we get mean we almost have to lower the back end. These things are so high, you know, cats can hide up underneath there at night. It is so high that makes them a little unstable on cornering, and they are far better if you just drop them about 25-30 mil. And this is what we're going to do today. Now, you'll remember these good old TEC shocks. Now, TEC Bike Parts, as you know, have been friends of ours for a long time. George at TEC has done some amazing stuff, sourcing parts from around the world, taking them to their workshop and adapting, adjusting, improving and customizing them so that they are a better product across the board. Now, that's what we've always fitted. If you look on the scrambler here, a pair of these on the scrambler for a penny. These are the standard lightweight spring rated TEC Bike shocks, and that's exactly what we've got here today. And we're going to put these on the Harley Davidson. The first thing you might think is, well, Harley don't. If you look at the TEC shocks website or the TEC website, they don't advertise these for Harley, certainly yet, but they should do because they fit. It's as simple as that. They are, as you can see, look centre to centre, that much lower. These, as I've shown you in the past when I fitted these TEC shocks, they have these slugs in. So with these, quite simply, you take, I haven't got any in yours, have we? You take this bottom union out completely, then that slug fits in its place, and that extends the bottom of the shock by 30 mil. So with these fitted, that's the standard height of a standard Harley Davidson European spec bike, the full height for whatever it is, 13.5 inch. With them out, it's going to lower the back end significantly. There is a little something we have to do to fit them, just some spaces I have to fit because these tops are a little bit narrow. We're going to do that, I'll show you how it's done, and I'll show you how easy it is to make a pair of these, fit that, and save yourself a fortune on progressive suspension and Burley and other things. Let's take these ones off. Okay, the bottom mounting on your Harley Davidson is a standard slip-through bolt rather than a peg mounting. It's just a hole in the swing arm there, which also serves to hold on the belt guard. So it's a little slim, specialised nut on the inside, which is 3/4 inch. And this on the outside is a Torx bit. Don't get confused or unaware of what it is and end up putting an Allen key in that. Go down there. Right. So when you do this yourself, you'll see these. Let me show you this nut on the inside. It's quite a specialised nut. It's a steel locking nut that's very slim, very narrow, and only just fits in the space here. So that's a specialised nut, don't lose it. Probably £100 from Harley Davidson. So bringing that out, pushing on the inside of my finger, just going to keep turning that, bring it to its outermost point. Do the top one. Now these should be Loctited in. I'll give you torque settings at the end. Now, so get the weight off it. So all I'm using here, I've uprighted the bike on the bench as usual, little tiny table lift jack underneath. You can buy these from any decent tool shop, and all you do with that is just keep jacking it up or down, whatever's the right way, there we are, until the shock goes loose. So once you've got that free play, you've got that bolt out of the way, you can see now, jack it up gently, a little bit at a time. There we are, look at that. Rattling free. Which means that we've aligned that, the swing arm and the top mount exactly with the length of the shock. So I can just take the box out. I don't have any issues. And it is as simple as that to remove the shock on a Harley Davidson. Piece of cake. Now at this point, normally if you were going to fit anything like progressive suspension, 412s, Burleys, anything like that, you just bolt the next set on. They just go straight over in place. But in this instance, there's something that stops that, and I'll show you. These normally come with a size that's actually a bit bigger. Because on the Triumph, when you fit these on a Triumph, that goes over a peg on the frame. Big fat metal peg that sits on the frame. It slides over, then a little capping bolt goes in. On the Harley, they actually sit on the bolt itself. It's just a flush thread in the frame. So that bolt, they'll supply them like that. That's a little bit big. What they will do, if you tell them, there's also the option on some alternative bushes. They'll send you, if you ask them, some alternative bushes that are a much tighter fit. So I was going to show you how to change those. On these particular shocks, I've done a bottom one already, just as an example. That's how they come, with a little bit of play in the bolt. And I've changed this one for the smaller one. You can see now, that's almost a nice tight fit, no movement at all. So I'm going to change those. Simplicity itself, I'll show you. Come over to the bench. Alright, so what we need to do is drive out this old bushing and put the new one in, which is a millimetre smaller. It's just an option. These are a semi-universal shock, so it's the way it goes. Now, obviously you need a socket that's the same size as the inner tube, a receiving socket that's big enough for it to go into, and this is a time-honoured procedure. Anybody who's ever changed bushes on their car, on steering joints, knows how to do this. So I might need you to wind the handle there, Penny. I'll just hold that in place. Ooh, a bit more. And what we're going to do is put the small socket on the inside. Okay, where you go. Go on. Oop, hang on. That's it, where you go. Stop, stop, stop. Come out. It's not on. Turn it around. Right, let's try it now. Go on. There we go, got it. Okay, I've got it now. Right, well, all you do is you push the smaller socket through, that's the same size as the bushing, and you push it through, and it will just drive out that bushing the other side. Now stop when it's about that far off. Take the old bush out, and then you've just got the plastic inserts which are split in the middle. They're split into that sort of format in two halves. So what I do is just pop the pliers in the middle in there on the join. A little tap. And there they are. Come straight out like that. And once you've driven these out, you can just pop the new ones in the same way. Soft jaws in there, just so we don't mark the body of that. I'm going to do with that. Just get it started by hand. They are an interference fit, so just get it in there and then just push it in. It finds its own level. And just drives it in nicely. Just press them in with a vise. Finally, the steel tube. Same format as before. Get it roughly level. Just drive that in. And it should go in gently. You know, one finger like that on the vise. Don't force it in. If it stops, then you stop. And there it is. I've changed the bush for a smaller one. Now that goes through almost dead snug fit. Very, very little, if any, play at all. That's the on the bike. Next thing, finally, before I fit these on the bike, is this section at the bottom. TEC will send these out to you in whatever form you want. These particular ones, I will lower this bike later, but I can't do the front today, so I just want to show you how this works. I'm just going to put these at the standard height for now. That's the bottom lug that screws into the bottom of the shock. all we do is we screw this in instead. That's just a 30mm spacer. And do with that, it's 3/4 spanner on the flats. I just nip it up. Doesn't need to be ground up tight, just nip it up, that's fine. And then put that back in. And you've now extended the overall length of your shock to that of your standard Harley. Now, there is a way here. People have asked this question on the TEC ones. Can I have some more height by doing that? No, you can't. That's not what it's for. If you want to do that, that's up to you. But personally, I like all that thread in there for strength and safety. And when you go, what I do is go all the way in till it's all bottomed out, come out by enough turns to line those two up, and then use the lock nut to lock it off. That is all I see that lock nut is for. There it is. Now that, as you can see, finally it's got the same eyelets and it is the same length as the standard shock. Probably about 5mm longer, if that. Now the other side of it is, these have been sent out with a standard spring for this weight of bike. These are 250 kilos. That is the standard spring, the correct spring for this bike. This is a progressive spring. It's impossible to say what poundage this spring is. I can't say that this is a 60-pound spring or an 80-pound spring, because it is many things. It's one amount of strength here in this progressively coiled section at the top, and then less and more so there and more so on the bottom. There are 3 separate poundages. If you look, you can actually see there's a section there which is coil tightest. This 3 coils are the next amount, and these last couple are really widely tight. And what that does, it gives you a spring that gets stiffer the more it is pressed in. That's what your progressive suspension company does. It's exactly the same. If you want to, and you're a big lad, or you're going to take a pillion on the back, or a big girl, whatever, they will do you a spring that is 10% stronger overall. And you can fit that yourself. You really can. I'll show you how it works. You see in the bottom there, this little collar. Mm-hmm. Let me show you on there. That little collar has got a gap in it. So all you do is you take one of these. If this is what if you've got TEC shocks on your Triumph while you're watching this, you said reaching for the spring compressor. Here we go. Now I bought these about 25 years ago from a car accessory shop. That's a spring compressor. You basically hook that over there, coil this in, and that will compress the spring. Once you compress the spring, you do 2 of those, one either side. You compress the spring in, take the weight off this base seat. Then that base seat, it lifts this way a bit and drops off. As that drops away, you can then remove the spring, put the stronger spring on, and put the coil on. So if you bought a pair of these and you wanted them stronger, or since you bought your TEC shocks,
you've had too many mince pies.
You've eaten too many pies and you want them stronger, you can put a stronger spring on and you can do it yourself. It's very easy. Right, let's get them on the bike. Okay, so I just want to show you this. Now the mounting, I'm now going to mount that straight on as it is. And you'll see the difference in them is there. The actual width of that head, if you wish, is about probably 30% wider on the Harley. But if you check that out, that's a solid piece all the way through. That is chunky, and it's 14mm thick, that piece of solid alloy. But on the Harley one, although you have this 30mm thick, massive great tube, at the bottom there, you can see there's just a little 10mm weld. You can see it. Mm-hmm. So that is no stronger because of its width than that is. None whatsoever. All it is just mounting it off enough to mount this, to accommodate this shroud. So as the Harley, as we see on the Harley item, when that bolt goes through, it goes in there with roughly 24mm of thread going into that hole. That's the safe factory amount, 24mm of thread. Now if we put the same bolt, where did the washer go? There it is. With its washer, you see on there that you have too much thread, and that will bottom out inside there, and also this will foul against that cutaway. So unless you've got, say, a 48 that doesn't have these, you're going to find a couple of issues. And the easiest way to deal with it is to space it. Now TEC will supply you with some little spacers. Anybody can make up some little spacers. If you're doing this kind of thing in your garage, you should be able to make up a spacer. It's really not difficult. And one of my favourite ways to make a spacer is a big fat nut. Now I've worked out through measuring it that I need 24mm of thread going in there from that, and I currently have, when I measure it, 34. So looking on there, 34mm of thread, so I need a 10mm spacer in place like that. Now that overall, if I measure, forget the bolts there, like that, that's now the same width going in. And the shock itself, the actual shock itself, I know a few of you are already probably thinking, but you've mounted the shock further out. And if you're pulling, if the shock's mounted further out, then it's going to be pulling on the bolts, but ultimately it's only 10 mil. It's not going to make any difference at all. What I've done is I've made that head the exact same width as the Harley Davidson shocks by putting a big fat, all this is a nut, big fat enormous 3/4 nut with the thread drilled out. I've drilled the thread out. That's 10.5 mil thick, must be an imperial size, but when it goes on there, that makes a perfect space out. And the same goes for the bottom. When I put the bottom bolt through, put one of those on, and I've got there now. So I've now got exactly the same specification as a Harley Davidson situation. So, situation.
You got a situation
my friend
there.
Pete there, wasn't it? Eh? It's a situation. Right, so I'm just going to do a couple of threads up on that. Get a couple in there, just holding it still. Get the bottom ready to go through, so that's lined up, and then hit it with the thread lock. So, bit of thread lock on the thread there. Going to let that run round the thread all together, and I'm going to wind that in all the way home. And that nut, effectively, because I've drilled the hole out in the middle, 14 mil, exactly to fit. And that will pull in nice and close all the way home with precisely the same amount of threadage inside the frame as Harley Davidson prescribe. There it is. Now underneath here, this is the same, got the nut on there, plenty of space. This nut, incidentally, when you do this, as you can see, you only get quite a small amount of thread sticking out, which is why you get this very narrow, skinny, very specialised steel lock nut. So you don't go putting a regular nut on there, because you won't get a full nut. And for those of you who never heard that term, a full nut simply means that the thread of the bolt protrudes fully through the nut, full, all the way through. Pop the spanner on the other side, hold it still, wind it home. Now feel on the back, just make sure you've got a little tiny bit of the thread sticking out, so that's all the way through, nice and safe. And that is exactly the same spec as Harley's fitting is now. Right, before that thread lock dries, I'm going to just lock that up on the old torque wrench now, which was how many pen?
45 to 50 foot-pounds.
Right, we'll do it at 45.
Do it up now, don't go in for tea.
Yes, because our friend Jeff, when he was doing rockers on his, I think it was the rockers on his Harley Sportster engine, he put the bolt halfway in and then went for tea, didn't he?
Yeah.
Click once. Let it step halfway in with all the thread locking, came out, decided to torque it in, snap, and sheared the bolt off, didn't you, Jeff? But that's okay, we had it on the rack for a while. And with the bottom one, it is a lock nut, and the torque setting's the same. So can you hold on to that then? Mm-hmm. Can you hold that with that hand? Just hold against it. And it's the same. One click, there we are. So you either need a penny bit stop to hold the other end of the handle somewhere wedging it. So that's that side done. As I said, I've put this longer slug in so that these are going to be exactly the same length as the standard shocks, because I'm going to leave the bike the same height from now. Later on I'm going to lower the forks, and all I have to do later on is take that out. When I lower the forks, that'll be a video, I'll show you how to do that. It's very simple. You just cut the tubes down the same as you do in the Triumph. There's some little plastic tubes in the top. Another video, another day. But when that time comes, I'll just be able to remove that section and drop the back 30 mil as well. For now, I'm just going to fit these at standard height, let them settle in, see how they go. So we get the other side fitted? Mm-hmm. Let's go. Do is pop them in, get it in, just a couple of turns, just deal with that bottom end. You got space there?
Yep.
Thank you. Like I said, these are in temporarily. Don't Loctite them in. Completely unnecessary. Not needed. Nip them up just gently. I'm not even going to do that. Just going to nip it up like that, and then put the final bottom in. It's just a pure, straightforward extender. And as I said earlier, you can take these springs out. You can put heavier springs in if you choose to. I can back that off. Take the locking nut or jam nut and set it there so it's not completely on the bottom. Pop through. Excuse me a sec. So just come up a bit on that. There we are. Nut in the back. We'll have a little bit more light in the new garage, won't we?
Just a bit.
Okay. This does not need Loctite on the bottom. It's not necessary. You can put it on if you want, if you're really, you know, belt and braces, but it's overkill. You don't need it. It's a locking nut in the first place. That one out. The Loctite on your thread on the top, right up against the seat of the frame thread. Plenty on there so it all runs round the thread. That is a time to use the liquid version as opposed to the waxy version. And as you run it in, it will deposit itself all round that thread. And our little spacer will jam up and hold this in exactly the correct position to be safe where it should be. And before it sets, just torque it in. How much is it again, Pen?
45 to 50 foot-pounds.
That's an old bunny, which is what I think it's about 70 or whatever that equates to. Click, that's it. Same on the nut. Oh, baby, let's go. There she is. And that's it. Right, now, yes, you have to adapt them. If you just show you a little bit about them. Come on in, Pen. These are the same as we put on the Scrambler and on the Bonneville before it. You've damping adjustment at the bottom, and you've got 1, 4, 5, 16 clicks. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Come halfway. So set the damping in the middle for yourself, damping adjustable. And you've got a collar at the top. Let's show you how to adjust that very quickly. In the box, you get yourself one of these. You've seen these before, a little C spanner. And all you do is back off the jam ring at the top, which is not a biscuit.
Well, it is a biscuit.
It is a biscuit. Purpose is the exercise. That's all right off. Okay, so just do it up as you take that in. And I would say come in just so you're off the minimum, just to start with. Give yourself, and the way I like to measure it, I've always done the same with these, all of the TEC shocks. And this isn't necessarily recommended by TEC, this is just what I do, because it gives me a set adjustment each side. Come on, the adjusters, bring that down until the gap, take this jam ring on the top right up to the top so it's set solid and won't move anymore. Move that down until you can get the spanner in. It's a little bit more than normal. And when that fits in like a feeler gauge, just right, then bring the jam ring down on top of it and jam it up. And I think that just takes it off the minimum. As everybody knows, you should never have any setting of anything on its maximum or minimum. Just bring it there like that and just jam that in place. That's all it needs. And that will set you to get going, just to start you off. One of the most important things with any time you put suspension on your bike is to take it for a test ride. Go for a little test ride, focus on the back end, how's it feeling? If that's a little bit too soft or it's a bit too squashy, you can click up a few clicks, just set it up for yourself and just make sure that each setting is exact. Now with this whole matter of this nut here, this is a modification. You could call it a bodge, but it's not a bodge, because a bodge would be a little stack of odd fitting washers or something that rattle around. That is a nut that was too small for the job, drilled out to the exact size of this bolt to make actually a metal block spacer. It's no different than if I'd gone and got a piece of metal stock, drilled it out on a lathe, turned it down to the exact size and put it in there as a spacer. That would have been a really wonderful proper job. But the nut is no different. The nut is a very strong piece of steel. It's completely solid. It's 10mm thick. It gives us exactly the same dimensions. It fits those shocks in exactly the same place as they were fitted by Harley Davidson. And where the weight's pulling here, it's pulling only probably 4mm further out than the Harley Davidson shock was pulling, or you know what I'm saying, is that the amount of pressure on that bolt, that twisting or shear pressure, and that is nothing. It makes no difference whatsoever. These are so strong, they'll hold up you, a pillion, luggage, bumpy roads, the whole lot. A couple of mil further out is nothing. Now, price. This is the most important thing with these. If you go and buy yourself a pair of Performance Machine 412s, which are the chosen weapon of choice for most people, lower in the back of their Harley, they're going to set you back about £250. That's what we paid for the last couple of pairs, wasn't it, Pen? If you go for Burleys, they're going to cost more. I've seen people paying £300, £400, £500 for some of the fancy ones you see on the back of the magazines. Things like custom chrome, that sort of thing, some of these fancy Swedish brands, Öhlins, that sort of thing. But Öhlins on something like this, honestly, it's a Harley Sportster. You're a tractor, you know? You don't need that kind of thing, because it's like trainers on your granny. It's that same concept. These shocks are perfectly acceptable for Harley Davidson. They're brilliant on the Scrambler and the Triumph. They don't have any problems at all. And they are how much, Ben? Tell them.
129.
£129 a pair, and that's with this adjustment. £129 a pair. What's not to like? Yes, they aren't going to be progressive suspension 412s, but they're £129. Now, if you've got the money to go and buy your PS shocks, then go and buy them by all means. Not saying these are better, I'm not, but I'm saying they're £129. They give you a fantastic option. If you want to upgrade the factory shocks, believe me, they're better than them. They are a country mile better than these. They really are. Any factory shock absorber just seems to be rubbish. I don't know why they spend any money at all on suspension on a cruiser bike, even on an 883 Roadster, which is kind of like the only Sportster that's kind of designed to handle. This is more the sort of thing you'd find on the back of your XL1200, and indeed very much it is. And the ones on the back of my XR12, they pretty much are identical to this. You've got adjustable ride height, just taking that slug out takes a few minutes, adjustable damping, they're a gas shock, and you've got infinite adjustment on the top. They're also a progressive spring, so you get a nice, smooth, soft ride. Compared to this, which is not a progressive spring. This is a linear wound spring, meaning that every coil is the same distance. So what you get is what you're given. That is one setting, one poundage. That is 3 different poundages, so you get a finer tuning. It absorbs the fine ripples in the road to make that generally more comfortable and capable ride. What about you, Pen? What do you reckon?
Great, perfect.
£129. What do they like? Contact the guys at TEC. You will have to space them out very slightly. You can use whatever method you wish. TEC can make you some spacers. You can make yourself some spacers. You can get them made up by an engineering firm, or you can buy some big old fat nuts like this and put a 14mm drill bit through them in the vise, like I did, and they make a very suitable and solid spacer. I've used that kind of spacer for many years, and it's fantastic. Loctite everything in place, get your torque settings correct, make it safe, take it for a test ride before you do anything. Right, now do it, man. Okay, there we are. Thanks to the guys at TEC for supporting us with these. We're going to give these a good go and some feedback for you as time goes on. I think they're going to be fantastic, because I know these shocks for a long time, and I think they've never let me down. I think they're fantastic. All right, take it easy, ride safe. See you next time.